Calaroga Shark Media.
Hey there, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. People are not upset with Shane Gillis, but they're kind of like, come on, dude. He went to the Masters last Sunday. Rory McIlroy had his run there. A lot of people were tuning in on the fly. A lot of casuals, myself included, put the golf on. And on his podcast, Shane said, I don't give an F about golf. I really wanted to. You couldn't see a thing. Shane was there with his Tires co-star Steve Gerben. Steve had pleaded with Shane to use his celebrity power to gain entry into the exclusive Masters tournament. Tagging along is their friend Chris O'Connor. Shane says O'Connor was planning on not going, so he had already started drinking a little. He was prepared to lock down by himself at Hooters for the entire day, which I could have been more jealous of. Gillis admitted that the fairways of Augusta were like paradise and that everybody was friendly except for the bathrooms, which he compared to prison. People on social media are both jealous and kind of like, can you not appreciate it? I had an experience once back when we did Blue Collar Radio. I used to get hot passes for NASCAR events. So what a hot pass is you can be in pit road while the race is going on, while cars are coming in and they're doing the tire changes and all that. And I'd be 3 feet from the car during a race. And every time I did it at the Daytona 500, I would be appreciative, but I was like, deep down, I know I don't appreciate this. It would be like somebody else who doesn't care sitting in the Mets dugout during a Mets World Series. That would be like my equivalent there for me. And I'm like, this is amazing, but I'm not a NASCAR fan. And I know there's somebody up there in the stands who would kill for this experience. Loved it, did it several times, thought it was cool. NASCAR is great. Especially in person, really good time, but I knew like deep down, I don't deserve to be here. Someone else does. I watched John Mulaney's show with David Letterman and Hannibal Buress and Nikki Glaser, and John Mulaney's not good at hosting a talk show. David Letterman tried to save the night, but the show, it's misproduced. Here's some notes from somebody who's produced a thing or two in 30 years. John's 15-minute story at the beginning, too long. I started hitting fast forward. Part of the problem is I know that they're going for this is different and this is chaotic and the zaniness and the weirdness is what makes it cool, but it doesn't work. You've got David Letterman there, but instead of just having Mulaney and Letterman talk, you've got Leanne Morgan there. So then Mulaney starts talking over Dave towards Leanne Morgan, who's further down the couch. Dave makes a joke about how awkward it is, which was funny. Again, Dave tried to save it, but the format doesn't work because Letterman or any guest, Nikki Glaser, Hannibal Buress, they can't get in a groove because you've got too many people sitting there at once. Richard Kind apparently has carte blanche to interrupt and throw the whole thing off. This show doesn't work. I can't understand how you have John Mulaney, David Letterman, Nikki Glaser, Hannibal Buress, and finally Leanne Morgan, and you can't hand in something that's entertaining. I didn't make it to the end. This show is not good. Conan OBrien will be the guest on John Mulaney next week. Here's a pro tip for the producers, okay? You ready? Here's what you're going to do. It's 7:01 in Los Angeles and 54 degrees. My first guest is Conan OBrien. Conan, how you doing? And then stop talking, and then 59 minutes later go, and that's our show this week. See you guys next week. All right, write that down, Mulaney. Or more importantly, write that down, Mulaney's producers, says the guy hosting a podcast in his basement. The Sydney Morning Herald asked the question, can John Mulaney's absurdist Netflix masterpiece save late night TV? Masterpiece. They used the word masterpiece. The Sydney Morning Herald writes, when it works, it's very good. However, there are some more awkward episodes. Cruise ships, for example, didn't land as a particularly interesting topic where everybody had good stories about getting fired. It's also about finding the right people. Yeah, like say you had, I don't know, David Letterman, Hannibal Buress, and Nikki Glaser. You could probably make a show out of that. It all has a frantic, somewhat cobbled together feeling that's incongruous to the amount of money that's clearly being spent on the show. And nobody seems more joyful about the chaos than Mulaney. He told Bill Hader, this is what it's going to be like the entire time. I have a whole new vibe. It's very different. It might be a winning strategy, a way to save the format, but it feels less deliberate than that. Maybe it's just a way to generally have fun and beloved style of show, for as long as they're allowed to get away with it. LateNighter.com wrote episode 6 of Everybody's Live treats Letterman's appearance with format-breaking comic reverence. An unprecedented cold open with a mic-toting Mulaney fainting towards a similarly unprecedented topical bit about the current constitutional crisis give way to the frenzied backstage prep for the measure-in. They lined up people in size order. It was a Letterman-esque bit. Even Letterman said that's the kind of thing we used to do. Late Nighter writes, a running theme this season has been that even Mulaney doesn't know what he's actually doing here. His pronouncement here that His sort of late night show looks and sounds like it's real, but it's just kind of off, is a more succinct definition than any I've come up with. Letterman's presence makes the call-in segments even more of an afterthought than usual. Mulaney introduces Hannibal Buress and Nikki Glaser as two of his best stand-up pals, while Leanne Morgan's ultra-southern shtick gets tiresome, but none can compete with the legend nestled beside them on Mulaney's couch. That's in line with my notes. Ladies and gentlemen, my first guest is David Letterman. Hi, Dave. What's going on? And stop talking. Good stuff from Late Nighter here. They write, for Dave himself, this sort of coded tribute is barely acknowledged, even as the entire episode plays out in one extended thank you. Rolling Stone interviewed Jimmy Kimmel. I shared that in the Facebook group, which is Daily Comedy News Podcast group. They were curious of Jimmy's earliest comedy memories. Kimmel said, I had an audio cassette recorder, and before Letterman came on, I would watch Carson. Same note. I was there for Dave, and you watched Carson to get to 12:30 with something to do. Kimmel says, specifically when Bill Cosby was hosting for Johnny. I taped the monologue and I transcribed it because I wanted to see what it looked like. But I didn't have any intention of being a comedian. That never occurred to me. I had a late night license plate and had a late night birthday cake because I love Letterman so much. Not that I thought I could do it someday. Rolling Stone was curious about the late night landscape, especially in light of After Midnight being canceled. Kimmel says, ABC pays me, so ideally, in an ideal world, everybody would watch our show on ABC, but it's not how it works. It's very easy to watch it on YouTube. People can watch anything at a moment's notice now, and in late night, I find most of the people are watching me the next day. That's the next day in the morning. But if you look at YouTube, you look at all the shows, more people are watching our late night television than ever were. And that's what any comedian wants. I don't know. I might have to fact check that. Let me see what Carson was at his peak. Okay, AI Overview on Google says Carson's show averaged 9 million viewers nightly. A Facebook post says it averaged 16 million people. Here's the LA Times saying 9 million. So let's go with 9 million. I guess if you add it up, 2 million here, a million there in the social media, maybe if we add everything together, it might get to 9 million Jimmy Kimmel. Maybe, perhaps, possibly. I'm too lazy to do the math. Jimmy, retirement. Yes, no. Jimmy said, I realize there's no point in talking about it. It upsets the people I work with. There are a lot of people who won't have jobs when I retire. That definitely weighs on me. But the reality is I'm not going to do this forever. At a certain point, it's going to have to end. I also know that there's not one person who works here who would resent me for retiring. I think they know that. When I'm done, I'll feel like I've done this as long as I possibly can. But you always feel like the band leader that when you step aside, everyone's going to have to find new jobs. Jimmy Fallon, whose Tonight Show is in third place, and I've been thinking about that since I said it on the podcast. I can't imagine a universe in which the Tonight Show is the third most popular thing at 11:30. How is that possible? And yeah, I get demos and the younger people like them and all that, but like, if you're at NBC and the Tonight Show is in third, are you like, what are we even doing? So I don't know, but like, if not Jimmy Fallon, who and what and why, right? So fine, let Jimmy Fallon sit there for 20 years. Maybe it's the marketing. Maybe they should hire Mulaney's producer. Just have Jimmy Fallon host a mess of a show. Who knows? Anyway, Jimmy's got another show on NBC, so I guess they like him a lot. He's going to host the marketing competition series On Brand, which will also feature marketing exec Bozoma St. John and a number of big companies. On Brand with Jimmy Fallon. We follow what happens when Jimmy Fallon starts a premier marketing agency and fills it with the most creative, clever, and competitive go-getters he can find. Boy, somebody in the NBC sales department is creaming their coffee over this one because a host of national brands, including Captain Morgan, Dunkin', KitchenAid, Marshalls, Pillsbury, Samsung, Sonic, Southwest, and Therabody, will be part of the show, serving as the agency's clients and, of course, getting a good deal of screen time. All right, so there's a show, and it's going to be all advertising. Oh, boy, NBC executives are just got to love this. Jimmy Fallon said, I love branding. I love marketing. I love the world of advertising. And I think there are a lot of people out there who do as well. This show lets the audience and our contestants get a peek behind the curtain of how campaigns for some of the biggest brands come together and what goes into making them. Each episode will see the on-brand agency, which reinforces the show's title, working with one of the aforementioned brands on a major campaign that may involve commercials, jingles, in-person experiences, or merchandise. The judges will pick the best ideas, which then go on to become real-world campaigns. What are we even doing? In Cincinnati yesterday, Cat Williams got a street named after him. You may know it as Reading Road at the corner of Maple Avenue in Avondale. Nope, it is now Cat Williams Way. Happy 420 and Easter, but happy 420 to those of you who observe. People who do observe today's holiday are Cheech and Chong. And I believe, from my original notes when I stashed this here months ago, Cheech and Chong's last movie, I think, is out today. Cheech and Chong's last movie is a documentary offering a wildly imaginative take on genre convention, a true life tale told through a mix of animation and archival madness, all underscored by a classic cinematic road trip comedy. My voice is already given out, and while I'll concede that often happens on the Sunday episodes, that's usually because I usually record Friday, Saturday, Sunday to give myself the weekend off. But I had the interview yesterday, so this is actually the first one in the sequence that I'm recording, and I don't know why my voice is gone, because I want to do Monday too, because it was supposed to be nice out today, and Johnny Mac wants to be doing something else. I love you guys, but it's Sunday, it's Easter, it's 420. I'm not a 420 guy, but if you are, that's fine. But it's Easter, and it's nice out, and I want to go out. Anyway, the Melbourne Comedy Festival wraps up today. The Guardian gave Lou Wall's show 5 stars. They write, comedians frequently lie, but if the story's funny, does it matter? If the truth of a hit TV show is contested, do you enjoy it less? Lou Wall's new show, Breaking the Fifth Wall, was nominated for Best Show at Melbourne International Comedy Festival. The story is about Wall listing a bed for free on Facebook Marketplace and the unhinged interaction that follows with a woman named Eileen. It's a fantastic bit, not least because it's very believable. Anyone who's listed something on Facebook Marketplace is familiar with the absolute gauntlet of humanity's weirdness that you open yourself up to. It starts with a straightforward story and then becomes something much more meta and much more complicated. Sounds like a fun show. I think I figured out how to... I've dropped my energy a little bit. I've stopped shouting, and I think if I talk at this level, I'll be able to record today and tomorrow. Let's do one more. From Expatscz, your home for comedy news, they caught up with Icelandic comedy star Ari Eldjarn. You know him from Pardon My Icelandic. Well, Ari is visiting Prague. Ari is known for his razor-sharp impressions and deadpan takes on Nordic oddities. Expatscz was curious, have you been to Prague before? Ari said, yeah, once about 8 years ago. It's beautiful. Reykjavik has almost no old buildings left. We basically demolished everything ourselves after World War II. The oldest house where I live is from 1790. In Prague, the pizzeria I went to was from 1490. It wasn't even listed as a historical landmark. Who shaped your comedic style? Eddie Murphy was the biggest comic in the Nordic countries. His specials, Delirious and Raw, were huge here. They were the first stand-up specials most people saw. Later, I discovered Eddie Zard. Now, my manager is Eddie's tour manager. It's been awesome learning from him. Good question here. Your material's very Eurocentric. Do you think it works outside Europe? Any jokes that didn't land? Ari says, by far, I've heard the biggest reactions from the Nordic countries, especially Denmark and Finland. It also really works in Australia. Australians really get it. The US, not so much. I haven't performed there much, but I think American audiences are harder to crack. Most of the Americans who make it to my shows are very Eurocentric. They're often the type who say, yeah, we're from the States. We're sorry. Good question here. You once said translating your material from English felt like a rebirth of the jokes. It's exciting. Once you realize the joke, which you thought was completely local, can be made international. It's a fun challenge because most of my material is so intertwined with Icelandic phrasing. When I speak English, I tend to be less precise, more of an impression of an English speaker, which can lead to strange errors. Sometimes you don't notice them, but doing it on the fly is a mind-bending challenge. It's almost like being an AI translator, and he shares that he's fluent in English, semi-fluent in Danish, and can also make himself understood in French, German, and Spanish. And of course, Icelandic, I assume. He says that's 5, but I'm counting 6, assuming the Icelandic one. And that's your comedy news for today. Oh boy, I got to find a voice for Monday's episode. Come back tomorrow. You'll see what happens.